Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. This is now Monday, May the 6th, and it is a Monday, and so I don't know, a lot of people, if depending on how your weekend went, here in New Jersey it's been a rather dreary weekend, not very warm, not really getting out of the 50s. For those of you who are in the UK and Europe and other places, that's it's probably not gotten above maybe 14, 15 degrees, so it's going to be about 25 today, or about 77. So it is going to go. It is going to get warmer today, but I've noticed that when it is going to be a warm day, it's very, very foggy in the morning. So we've had a lot of fog, and sometimes that's nice. I'm kind of a little tired of it, to be honest. I get to be sunny again, but it will. So today is for me. It's a day where like I said, a lot of people are going back to work today after having the weekend off. And for me, it's usually kind of a day off. If you look at my coaching schedule, I'm usually off Monday, Tuesday, and I work basically Wednesday through Sunday. Although sometimes Sundays I have to take off for family events and things like that. I'm mostly work on I try to do that because a lot of my clients do work during the week, and they really want the option of being able to do coaching. They don't want to have to do it after work. They want to do it on the weekend. So I try to keep those slots open for people. I have somebody did ask me. I had gotten a question about, they said, your room always looks so neat behind you. And I'm like, yeah, I do like things to be in a certain order because I have a hard time working in a room where there's a mess everywhere. But the reality is that I have a screen up over here that you can't see. And I had a client yesterday, and I'm selling off my Edward Gorey books. I'm a big collector I've been a collector for years of Edward Gorey. As a child, I had read a lot of books that were, Gorey did all kinds of books, but I always read a lot of spooky books. One of my favorite authors was John Bellairs. And so all the Bellairs books, well, with the exception of a couple that were illustrated by Mercer Mayer, they were all illustrated by Gorey. And Gorey illustrations are classic. When I would go up to Salem, I would see lithographs and things for sale. His stuff goes for hundreds of dollars. And I actually do have first editions and things like that I've collected over the years. But I'm at a point where I am offloading stuff. I actually have a car trunk, car boot full of stuff that is ready to go to the Habitat for Humanity store. A lot of kitchenware, glassware, stuff like that. Stuff I have not used in years. It's just been sitting gathering dust. So I'm like, well, I'm going to donate it now. I'm trying to clear out, because my goal is still to move overseas. And I feel like while there's certain things that are stuck with regard to that goal, I can still work around the edges. I can still try to get rid of things. I can try to clear my space out and kind of prepare. Oops, sorry about that with the camera. Try to prepare by not trying to accumulate a lot more stuff, but trying to say, okay, I'm emptying out so that something new can come in and fill the space in that way. And that's, there's a lot around that too, around the idea of a lot of things. Sometimes people will say to me, because I've been talking about moving to England since 2009. I went to school in 1993. I was in school in England in 1993. It was study abroad, really, but I was at University of Reading. And at the time, my life circumstances were such that I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to be here. I was engaged at the time. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And later, of course, it was one of those things that I looked back on and said, wow, I should have completely foregone the marriage because it didn't last. And I should have just tried to go to graduate school and tried to stay. Not that that's any guarantee that I could stay. But frequently I will have people say to me, well, why don't you just get up and go? Just do it. Just sell your house and do it. It's a yes but thing. And I'm like, well, the problem is it's not that easy to just say, okay, I'm just going to pick up and move. I'm going to I'm just gonna sell my house and go for it. You really can't, because legally you cannot. Britain is one of the countries that is very, very strict with regard to its immigration laws. Things are actually a lot worse now because I do follow British politics very closely. And certainly there's been a lot of upheaval in their Home Office, which are the ones who would approve those kinds of visas. And so really going to Britain, you basically have three options. You can go on a 6-month visitor visa and say and I've done that, I'll Airbnb it for 6 months. The problem is I need to be flush with cash to be able to do that. That time I had a backlog of some savings that I just said, look, I need to get out of the country. I'm using this savings and I'm going to go. And I was still trying to build my business at that time. But it was the best thing I ever did. I have no regrets about doing it whatsoever. So it would be ideal if I could just close the house down and do it again. But I still have a mortgage to maintain here. Even though I'm not living here, the utilities are still on. Turning utilities on and off is a very complicated process. And I've been told, if you're going to be gone for a certain period of time, a lot of times, the cable companies will say, oh, well, if you're going to, to Florida for the winter or something, like a lot of people do from up here, which God only knows why, but that's what they do. And they will, in doing that, they will give them a thing where they can just say, pay $15, $20 a month just to keep the service on, which is what I was hoping to get. And they're like, oh no, you can only do that between something it was you can do it for a 2-month period, between November and February or something like that. That was the only time you could do it. And that was not usually the time that I was traveling. I was usually there for, I think last time I was there, I wanted to go in January, ended up leaving in early February, and I was there through the beginning of July. But I didn't stay in the UK the whole time. I was also in Ireland part of the time. So you can do that, but again, you have to have a huge back fund to be able to do that, which right now I do. I've been making enough to pay my bills, but I don't have enough to do that. Okay. The second way is potentially that I've been looking into is an ancestry visa, because I do have, on my father's side, English-Irish roots, and also apparently Scottish and Welsh, based on a recent DNA test. And I was like, really? But it just seems like a lot of my great-grandparents, it's basically, you can get an Irish visa if it's your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents. And so far, it looks like it's my great-great-grandparents. So it's a generation just out of reach. But there are some other connections that I'm looking into where I'm not really clear on where the family member immigrated from. So there's possibly an opening there. Some people have told me, well, you're eligible for a Polish passport. You should get that and get an EU passport. Problem is, yes, I could potentially, although there seems to be a lot of strings attached to people who are trying to get ancestry passports to Poland. So that I'm not, and I think you do actually have to live there for a period of time, which I'm not, certainly not in this environment with what's going on with the Ukraine war and everything. It's not a place I'm looking to live. And I don't speak Polish, so that doesn't really help me too much. And again, having an EU passport doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to live in Britain. If I lived in Ireland, if I had an Irish passport, then I could also live in Britain. So that's the rub. So it's trying to figure out if there's a legal way for me to do that. The other possibility is getting a job or getting married. And getting a job is very, very difficult. Again, I have applied for jobs over there that I am literally 100% qualified down to the letter. And I've even had people contact me wanting to interview me, but they're like, well, the fact that you don't have right to work, we're not going to be able to justify it. Because that's true, and that's true with people coming to America too. You have to be able to justify the visa that they're giving you. And Home Office is very, very strict about those visas. If they give you one, usually it's only temporary. It's like, oh, okay, you can work here for a year. Unless you are in a profession that is one of the ones that's on the list of their needed occupations. And a lot of those are either in computer science or the sciences, or they're nursing and things like that. Some reason graphic design and animation's on the list. I don't know, but there's a list, and what I do is not really on it. And it's of course it's fully well understood that you want to give those jobs to citizens first. But I can't. I don't have. Even though I have 3 post-grad degrees, I could try to go back to school there, but even that's only going to be short term. And again, that's going to require a lot of upfront money. It's not like you can take a student loan for something like that, unless you're being sponsored by an American university. And if I want to go to work for an American company to try to work over there, well, again, it's the same thing. I'm not looking to go back to a company. I'm trying to do what I'm trying to really, the goal is to make my business entirely remote and to be making enough money that I can do what I want to do. Marriage, I don't consider an option. I mean, if I was dating somebody seriously over there where that seemed like that was possible, but even if that happened, then you still have to be making a certain income according to the Home Office if you want to stay in the country as a spouse. So there's all kinds of rules in Britain. There's all kinds of layers of bureaucracy connected with it. So it's not just simply a matter of, well, I'm just going to sell my house and move. And Ireland's not any better with that. Some people say, well, just go to Ireland. I'm like, no, Ireland's only a 3-month visa. And it's, and yeah, the kind of restrictions that you have are the same. There might be, a few more visa options potentially, but the ones that I have either are going to require a lot of money or they're going to require, circumstances that have to be kind of approved according to their rules that are not viable right now. So, so that's just where I'm at with it. So I sort of, one of the questions when people seem to be like, well, how come you're not living in England yet? And I'm like, do you know anything about how this works? So, still something I'm working towards though, and that brings me to the topic that I wanted to talk about today, which has to do with law of attraction and manifestation. So this is something that comes up for me frequently. I've seen a lot of videos about it, and certainly this is something that comes up a lot in spiritual coaching and just in kind of I don't know. I don't want to just tag, well, I do kind of tag it as new agey, but it comes up within a lot of alternate spirituality in general. So, okay, so law of attraction. What do I think about it? Do I think it works? The short answer is no, but let's just say yes and no. Here's what I think does work. Now, as somebody who has, dealt with different magical practices and stuff for years, and natural magic kind of stuff, the whole principle behind that is that of sympathetic magic is that you do something that symbolizes what it is that you want to do. So you either engage in an action that is meant to imitate something that's going on that you're trying to happen. You might use photographs of people or places or situations if you're trying to establish something. You might use a lot of mental energy to create thought forms to send messages. You might create sigils to represent what it is that you want. Maybe put your energy into that sigil and then maybe burn it, to try to different things that people do to try to manifest what they want. And those things can work, but they don't necessarily work right away. And you have to be very careful, because if you're doing something like that, you may need to make sure you know what you're asking for. So let me give an example. Let's just say you want to do some kind of a ritual I want to make $1 million, right? Let's just say you say that. If you're not very specific about how you want that $1 million, it could be that you get in a terrible accident, you're crippled, but you get $1 million settlement. I mean, that's the way that's why you have to be careful with natural magic. You got to make sure you're saying, for instance, say, oh, well, I want to make $1 million at my business. But even so, there's no quick fixes to anything. And that's the thing. And my problem that I tend to have with law of attraction is that people will frequently say things like, and I've heard this from certain people who are engaging in coaching or certain brands of spirit, or in certain practices, who have said to people, well, if you're not wealthy, if you don't have what you want in your life, it's your own fault. You're not manifesting hard enough. You're not thinking hard enough about it. You're not, and so you tend to, so therefore you're shaming people. It's called spiritual shaming. It's like you make people feel like they're failures because, well, all you have to do is think and you can get what you want in your life. And that is, pardon my French, but that is bullshit. That you can't, you cannot talk your way into something, because again, that goes back to what I said about making everything cognitive. My mind is powerful. I'm in control of everything and I can make things happen. Well, you can't. Okay. Some of the people who I've heard say this, that I'm watching their flagging businesses, I'm like, well, why haven't you manifested it? I wish I could reach this. Oh, they'll say, I wish I could reach this goal. I'll say, well, why haven't you manifested it? And not to pick on them, but I'm also like, I don't like it because I have been in situations where I have been, with my driving practice, practice. That was weird. With my driving situation, with people who know me or who have seen some of my past videos, is that I have difficulties driving. I had a point where I had like a massively traumatic kind of breakdown with regard to driving, and now it's like I can drive, but I tend to stay very, very local. That's why I don't, unless somebody's coming with me or somebody who's willing to drive me, I don't frequently drive a lot to events. And if I do, I have to make a lot of preparation. But I don't get on highways or motorways or anything like that. So that is limiting to me in that sense, which is why I want to work entirely remote, because it's just I just it's not something that I feel like there's a lot of reasons for it, which I won't get into here. But I actually did have somebody I was working with who was just like, well, why are you doing this to yourself? And I'm like, I'm not doing it to myself. It goes back, and to me, it's the same reason I'm not a big fan of cognitive therapies, even though people have said they've been helped by them. And yeah, maybe there is a whole thing of, there's self-hypnosis techniques. There's different things that people can use where you can try to change your thoughts. But ultimately, I don't like the whole idea of change your language and change your thoughts, because, changing the language could be changing the symbolism of something. And again, kind of like that magical technique, when you use a different language, it may have an impact, but it's not going to magically solve your problems. And then there's this constant stress for you to try to be in control of your life. And the reality is you need to just really, and it's a very, and again, if you know my work in Cattonia, I'm very masculine, feminine, and I mean that in broad categories, not just about men and women individually, because everybody has masculine and feminine characteristics. But it's a very masculine way of doing things. You've got to take action, you've got to do something. And to me, it feeds off of what I think is the negative side of capitalism. And I'm not saying capitalism isn't evil. It can be. Any political or economic system can be an evil if it's corrupted. And when the whole idea that if you work hard, you're going to be rich, for example, is really, unfortunately, it's a patent non-truth. The people I know who work the hardest and those are people who are always still struggling. The people who are really, really successful are people who, I'm going to use Cory Booker's phrase, and probably he didn't originate it, but he was the last person I heard it from, saying, you're born on third base. You have something, my parents gave me $1 million to start out. That's great. My parents didn't have $1 million to give me to start out, But there's this attitude of, if you are somebody, if you're suffering from something, if you have a physical ailment, if you have a mental ailment, there's certain things, or if somebody needs to be on disability, if somebody needs, to take advantage of a social safety net, they treat those like, they call them now entitlements. Like, oh, you think you can be lazy and sit around and be entitled. And it's like, no, people, it's basically saying you have to be working yourself to death all the time. And a lot of times that's been merged into religious ideologies too, where even though, technically speaking, if you look at the theology of what they call grace in Christianity, grace versus works. In other words, is it just the grace of God that's going to quote unquote save you, or is it your good works? Okay. And really, the policy, which might surprise you for most of the religions, is that works, especially in Protestantism, works have nothing to do with it. It's like if you look at the Puritans, it was just, well, you're either part of the elect or you're not. Okay, but you should still work to live a sinless life. I don't know that would be much of an impetus for me, but that was the way it was viewed. But people seem to have this thing about, if I'm not working hard every minute, then I'm lazy and I'm unproductive. And if things aren't happening for me, it's my fault and I'm a bad person. And it's like, no, it's just, you need to be where you are. And we need to have a society that's a little more compassionate about the fact, without treating it like, oh, I work hard and you're a freeloader. Like, that's the way it ends up being. It's that old pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But the realities of that are not as stark as people like to present. And certain things, like technically I have what you would consider a disability, because I can't just say, okay, I'm just going to take a job, because I thought about it, like, okay, maybe I could go work at the hospital down the road, or I could do this, doing some of the work that I do. But the reality is, if I had to get up and do that every day, I wouldn't it would be a problem. It would be a challenge. It would be a pretty severe challenge. And some days I don't know that I'd be able to do it. So in theory, that's a kind of disability, but I'm not entitled to any kind of, state support or anything for that. Because that wouldn't qualify. I'd have to go through a very, very expensive rigmarole to be able to get that qualification. And there's other people who have been suffering from, say, long COVID sufferers is a good example. After COVID, there were a lot of people who were suffering, and but it wasn't recognized by insurance companies. There was no code for it. So it was just like, if they were suffering and they had to leave their jobs, it was just like, well, too bad. You have to, you're just going to have to, you're just going to have to suck it up. And that ends up making people feel that ends up making people doubt themselves and doubt what they're going through. But when you have an illness, whether it is, especially when it's not something that's easily identifiable through a test, okay, or it's something that tends to be more psychological in nature, we just think, oh, well, we can send you to therapy or we're going to put you on drugs and that's going to fix it. See, that was the thing. Like with me, they tried to give me some anti-anxiety meds and stuff, and they're like, okay, well, this will help you with your driving. Well, it didn't. It didn't help at all. Like, no dose helped me. It didn't even make me tired. Like, for whatever reason, my body is like, that medication. It doesn't care. So I don't have that option. I can't say, oh, I'm going to, pop a Xanax and get in the car. Also, but even if that did work, I'm like, I don't know that I'd want to have to go to a place of employment knowing that I'm impaired in that way. I mean, if it worked. I don't see that. And I'm not going to go the antidepressant route because there's all kinds of, first of all, I'm not depressed. But second of all, there's a whole, and I realized my doctor said, well, no, that's just a term that they use. And I'm like, I know it's a term that they use, but I also studied psychopharmacology and I know what those drugs do. And again, some people use them. They're happy to use them. It's fine. I also don't think, because literally nothing, I mean, I've done the CBD, THC route, doesn't work. None of it works. Somebody will take this and say, oh my God, this was perfect. This like totally leveled my anxiety out. It was great. And I take it and it does nothing. So yeah, there's no, I don't have a lot of good options in that realm. I mean, I guess the upshot of that is I will never be a drug addict. But it's because they just don't seem to, my body chemistry is just like, yeah, nope. So it's, so that's the good part. But anyway, so point being, there's a lot of times that people go on where they want to just shame you into thinking like, you should have absolute control over your life and it's all a matter of you thinking it into being. Now, it is good to try to create, try to do actions towards, even symbolic actions towards what you want to do. If you can't do big things, like what I'm doing here with this. Okay, right now I'm doing little things, okay? If I want to clear my space, because if I had to move overseas, then I got to get rid of a lot of stuff in my house. I can't just, pack it all up and take it with me. So I'm starting to make plans for, okay, where's everything going to go? And if there's things I can get rid of now, I'm going to do it. So you kind of working towards something. So there's that's more like not law of attraction, but more like setting an intention with the universe. Kind of saying, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I'm doing in good faith towards that goal. And then that point, you want to rely on your intuition and on your inner guide about what is the right way to meet that goal. And again, back to the idea of timing. Sometimes the timing is not good. There may be certain things on a broader scale that are happening that may prevent you from reaching your goal, no matter how badly you want to reach it, like right now. And so you have to learn how to have patience. So that's my little spiel on that. I'm going to do our reading for today because we are at almost 5:00. So let's see what our cards say for today, what people might need to know. This is not for me. Obviously, I always have to say this is not a personal reading. This is a general reading for those who are, either watching now or will be watching in the future. So whenever you watch this, this is what you need to hear, or you will know if it's what you need to hear. Because sometimes there are times when readings don't necessarily resonate with people, but I try to keep them more general. Okay. All right, so our Osho Zen reading for today. Oh, it's interesting. We got the lovers on the bottom. Okay, so our first card here is really what is the Justice card. This is a card of breakthrough. Okay, So breakthrough is a very good card. Breakthrough, okay, justice card by itself is a card of truth. Okay, it's a card of coming into truth, recognizing the truth of a situation, waking up to something. So this is the idea of a breakthrough. Now, a lot of people recently have been dealing with crises and breakdowns. As I pointed out to somebody the other day, I said the solar eclipse we had was conjunct Chiron. Chiron in astrology is the wounded healer. And so it has really really poked at people's wounds. Like if, not to be kind of gross, but the kind of attitude is if you have like an infection under the skin, bringing the abscess or the boil to the surface, it's really put it out in front of you, and that's kind of the bursting, it's letting the poison out. So a lot of people have gone through that. But this has, but again, this breakdown leads to a breakthrough. You need to do that. Otherwise, if you have the infection, eventually the infection infects your system, right? We're just speaking metaphorically here of the body. This would be about having the breakthrough, being able to, now you're at the point where whatever the truth is that was revealed, whatever you've woken up to, whatever challenge you've met, whatever the worst is that was going to happen, you've been through it, okay? And now you're able to see things in truth. The inner feeling of which you're unaware is the inner voice card. I love this card. This is the High Priestess card in this deck. Yeah, it's saying your inner voice has been prompting you in some way. I think for a lot of people, a lot of the changes are waking people up to what we're talking about, what I call the feminine way, which is more about going with your intuition, going with your inner feelings, not second guessing what you're going to do. I actually had an instance the other day where I had something that was going on, and I was a little bit challenged about it, but I had a client in the morning, and then I was like taking a little nap in the afternoon, and then all of a sudden I woke up and it was like there was something that I had to do. Like, I had to do it right now. And I was thinking like, oh, but, is this really a good idea to do this right now? And my mind immediately got into the thing. And when I pulled like a rune on it, it was like, will you stop second guessing your intuition? So I just went ahead and did the thing. And I was very, very happy in the end that I did the thing, because I was worried about a certain result, and that's not the result that happened, or a good result happened. So it was, so that was, listening to your inner voice, okay? The external feeling, of which we are aware, is new vision, okay? This is the Hanged Man card, but new vision, this is not taking the perspective of something that is stuck. I mean, it could be something where you're in a period of waiting for something, but new vision often says that perhaps this breakthrough and listening to your inner voice has brought a new perspective on something. It allows you to see something from a different vantage point. And I feel like, okay, for whoever's watching this, there may have been a recent breakthrough, or maybe there's going to be in the near future, where something perhaps where you feel like you've been going up against a wall, you may be asked to take, you may feel like you need to take an action, maybe that seems radical to you, but it is something that is going to ultimately change your situation and allow you to look at something differently from a broader perspective, from a new perspective. And I think it means you will have a chance to see things differently. We have the card of letting go here. So letting go is the Eight of Cups. It's that, exactly what I said at the beginning of the live stream about surrender. Just let go and let the universe do what it's going to do. Whatever you've woken up to, instead of speculating of like, oh, is it going to mean this outcome? Is it going to mean that outcome? Is it going to be this? The letting go card means just let whatever's going to happen. And if something has fallen away, then you have to look at it as, okay, its time is finished, in your life. For whatever reason, Eight of Cups is frequently a card of, usually you see 8 upright cups and somebody's walking away from them. It's like, okay, so for some people, and this is just an example, it's not necessarily your circumstance, but it could be a job or something that has been stressing you out, and you say, okay, you know what, yes, this was my source of income for all these years, and it's comfortable and familiar, but this is not what I'm doing anymore. And you walk away because there may be other reasons why this is no longer the person who you are, or this is no longer this breakthrough, whatever it is. For some people, it's telling you that there's a deep let go that has to happen. You don't want to turn around and cling to the past, and you don't want to be overly focused on, worried about what's going to come next. And saying that, recognizing it's sometimes easier said than done. but it is assuring you that the breakthroughs that are coming are letting you know that you can let go. Okay, and your ultimate outcome is the stress card. And again, this is not the first time this has come up. This is the card of, the guy trying to, he's trying to juggle all of these things, and he's playing a trumpet all at the same time, and he's balancing on a balloon, and there's a monkey there about to pop the balloon. So this is saying, don't get your head in a tizzy. Don't stress yourself out. You basically, the meaning of this card, this is the Seven of Wands. Again, the kind of holding your ground, kind of stubbornly holding your ground thing. And so it's saying, do something unimportant. Do something unimportant. I mean, that's the other rebellious idea here. Don't feel like you have to be working every minute, do something unimportant. Welcome. I see that I'm seeing that you've joined me, and I'm literally, I'm probably only about 5 minutes from ending. But I was just doing the reading, and I'll just run through the cards again really quick. We have breakthrough. So that is the idea that recently some kind of truth or awakening has happened. You have inner voice inside, so the idea of learning to listen to your inner voice and your intuition. Your external one is new vision, which is about taking a new perspective on something, whatever breakthrough you've had, whatever your intuition's telling you. It's now kind of pushing you in a new direction. The advice is to let go, to surrender to whatever's going on, to not try to hold on to the past or a situation that has outlived itself. That may be part of your breakthrough. And ultimately, the stress card. So the stress card saying, don't, do something unimportant. Don't worry so much. Let go. Let the universe do its thing. That seems to be the advice coming up a lot. And and really, just to kind of recap what I was talking about in this live stream, was that I was talking about law of attraction and why I don't advise it for my clients. I don't tell people that it's working. So, okay, awesome, you got the message you needed. So I was talking a little bit about law of attraction before, and kind of to summarize what I was talking about was that I'm not a fan of it. I do think that we can set intentions. I do think that it's a good idea to, manifest things. But my problem with law of attraction is that we believe that our mind can control everything. And the corollary to it, so to speak, is that if you are not, if things are not the way you like them to be in your life, then people who follow that to its conclusion will say, well, see, that's because you're not thinking about it the right way. See, it becomes a spiritual shaming. If you don't have enough money, if you're sick, if you have this, well, it's your fault because your bad thoughts are making it happen. And that, as I've said, is a lot of BS. That's not, that is not how, that shows no understanding of how the mind works, and is very masculine, cognitive driven, which says that, I can think and take action and take my way through anything. And weirdly, the stress card that came out there is really kind of connected to that, because stress is the person who says, okay, I've got to be doing all this stuff all the time. I have to be busy all the time. I have to know what I'm doing. And it's saying, no, you don't. No, you don't. And people, and also for people who are in the gap, like who are between maybe contemplating job changes or just went through a big life change and maybe feel like, well, I've just got to get up, pull myself up by my bootstraps and just keep going. And it says, this is basically saying, no, you need to take time out to play. Go do something unimportant. Go do something, don't sit there every minute. The answer really, which most of us think is absurd, is you just need to let go and just say, okay, this is what it is. And let your inner voice prompt you about what kind of action you want to take. It takes time to learn how to get into that flow. As I've said in the past, me as an academic, and also as somebody who for years always worked 2 to 3 jobs, always, until the body said no. No, you're not doing this anymore. You need to be focused on what you've learned, what you've experienced, and how you can share that with others, and not just sitting in an office where every project you do, it's like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that, but we have no funding for it, which is pretty much what my life had become at that point. And so I said, what am I showing up for every day? And a lot of people are in that situation. They show up and it's just like, and they have to kind of look busy or look like they're doing something important. I mean, those of you who've like sitting on corporate meetings and stuff, and you have the meeting and then you have the pre-meeting for the meeting, it just, you feel like your life is just like this endless Kierkegaardian hellscape. You're continually planning and nothing's really happening, or it just seems like, okay, we've produced a document, we produced a, and it's like, I don't know, it's, I'm not saying those things can't be important to certain situations, but we end up attaching, there's certain tasks that we do, but we end up attaching a lot of importance to things like this when, it's just, it may not be in tune with who we are. It may not be something we're passionate about. It may not be something that we really want to do. So, yeah, so it's really, it's an interesting thing because the idea, I think that, first of all, it's okay to not have to work 3 jobs. It's okay to sit back and take some time out and say, no, you know what, I'm going to take a week, a month, whatever, just to focus on me, just to take care of myself. Because we're taught, especially if you're a woman, you're taught, oh, that's selfish. You can't do that. You have to be doing something all the time. And when you want to, a lot of times when we have things that have stressed us or have traumatized us, okay, a lot of times we don't want to focus on those things. And it's understood that we don't want to have that stuff in our face all the time. I feel like I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Having distractions is good. Sometimes when we have been feeling very sad in a situation we can't do anything about, you go down and you sit down and you watch a comedy. You do something to try to lighten the mood. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's not an avoidance. But some people have an entire life of either focusing on other people too much or focusing on some other kind of avoidance. Like and when they don't have somebody else to focus on and they have to just focus on themselves, now it makes them very, very uneasy, because their whole thing is like, no, I have to, this happens a lot with women who say, well, I need someone to take care of all the time. And to those women, I've often had to say, okay, but let's not, I know you have your kids and you love your kids and your family, and that's awesome. That's great. But who are you? And a lot of times they're just like, I'm a mom. These are my kids. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that is part of who you are. But who are you? When those kids grow up and they go on and they go do something else, who are you? And that question sometimes is not really easily answered because people have tied up their identity so much either in something external, in a job, in their children. And again, it's not that those things aren't important and that they shouldn't be devoting their energy to it. But a lot of times you lose your personhood in that. You lose what it is that, what is unique to you. What are your unique attributes, gifts? What are your qualities? If you could do something. And a lot of times the things that we want to do, that we love, and I've been dealing with some of this week too, of people who have said, well, people who had certain dreams about, I don't know, doing something artistic or going into a field where people say, well, you can't make money at that, so that's silly, don't do that. And so they steer away. How many students I have who love the classes that I teach, and they're like, yeah, but I'm in school and my parents say I have to major in accounting. This stuff is really what interests me, but I have to major in accounting. And I'm like, I find it unfortunate because now you're just turning, instead of college being an experience where you can open your mind, which is really the point of it. It's supposed to open your mind, teach you to critically think, look at other points of view. And instead it just becomes another level of vocational training, another box you have to check. And that's the unfortunate corporatization of things. So really the rebellious act here is to say, no, just play, do something unimportant. That's the thing. And you're not a bad, lazy, unproductive person for doing that. You need you need to take care of you. And taking care of you is not being selfish. Okay? And that's another thing I think women in particular tend to suffer with, is the idea that I know this is certainly an ancestral tradition in my family, let's put it that way, of and from what I understand, this is actually a pretty distinctly Eastern European thing. Well, maybe not. Actually, I'm going to take that back. It certainly seems to be a thing in Eastern European families, but I also know it's a thing in other cultures and other families as well. Of that, you know, if you are not working every single second at doing something, then somehow you are lazy, shiftless, and unproductive. You know, my mother comes out of that tradition like hardcore. Like, she'll be out there doing weird things, like pulling crabgrass out of the lawn and like sweeping her driveway, like which are both Sisyphean tasks. I mean, it's pointless to do that, and she's actually destroying her lawn by doing it, as we've tried to explain to her. But you know, she does these things because this is how she feels she has to be doing something. And I'm like, you don't. You're not obliged to be. I understand people can get bored and restless. Maybe they don't want to sit, they don't want to watch TV, they don't want to do things, but that doesn't mean you have to do that. It goes back to the assignment that my friend gave to her students, where she said, okay, your assignment is to sit in silence for 30 minutes, like no phone, no TV, no internet, no nothing. And then after 30 minutes is up, write about it. What was it like? And the ones who actually did the assignment, because when you work in university teaching, not everybody does the assignment, they were like, that was the most horrible thing ever. Like, people can't stand to sit with themselves. But being able to do that is half the battle in being able to deal with transition. Because if you can sit with yourself, then you're also sitting with all of your stuff. Okay? You're saying industriousness is rewarded seemingly. Yeah, seemingly I think is the word there. But like as I've often said in the past, like I was talking a little bit earlier about the capitalist mythology that says people who work hard will be rewarded, and that gets tied in with something called the Protestant work ethic, which is kind of interesting. And I was talking a little bit about the idea of grace versus works, like people who are religious, who are either Catholicism has one view, Protestant sects tend to have a different view, but generally it's assumed that it's grace. If you believe in salvation, which that's a whole separate topic I won't get into here, but if that is your point of view about being saved, then it's grace that saves you and not works. That's pretty much the theology of most of those religions. But there became this idea, which it seems to be, I don't want to say it's distinctly American, it might be, but the idea that your works are going to be what rewarded. We have something called prosperity gospel, where people say God rewards those, who work hard. But the thing is, those people don't work hard. The people I see who work hard, the people I've run into, like the cleaning staff who work like 16-hour shifts and they work like several different jobs, those people are never rich. They work really hard. They work harder than I've ever worked. And like I said, I was a person who repeatedly did 3 jobs. But as far as I was concerned, those people work really hard. They're not rich. It's not about that. It's about and everything becomes. There's so much out there that I see, even here on Instagram, where it's just like, oh, here's this get rich quick thing. Oh, this is the 5 steps you need to take, or you just follow my course and you'll be making $100,000 a month. Well, if they're doing that, good for them. But I promise you, they didn't do it. It didn't start happening after a month. It takes time to build things. It takes time to build things organically. And I don't know. I just, it's not always, maybe there's sometimes in some places where you can take shortcuts, but a lot of times that might not be beneficial and it might not have the result that you want. So this is running over what I normally do, but since I've got a whole bunch of people joining me at 7, I thought, okay, well, I just did the Osho Zen reading, and you can come back and watch the recording of this, but I'll throw in, I'll do a cartouche reading because I have my cartouche cards right here. So let's just see what comes up for us for today, which is the general message for people who are watching or people who end up watching this later, what we can have. Okay, well, this is really, okay. This is a really good one. Okay, so our cards here are Horus. We have Water as our second card. We have Nepenthes as our third card. The Ankh is our fourth. And then the Crook and Flail is the last one. So this is a very nice message for today, actually. Because Horus fundamentally has to do with, first of all, it has to do with being seen. It has to do with being creative, being a leader. And as I've said, like letting who you are shine through and people appreciating that. It has a lot to do with healing. For some people, it can have to do with things that are around family issues. But there's definitely a strong sense of not only healing work, but also of being seen for the person that you are. There's like a heroism to this card, that you are, whatever you have gone through. I had the breakthrough card originally in the Osho Zen deck. So whatever you've been going through, now you are... it's almost like you've come through victoriously, right? You've come through, you're kind of at the other side, you're being recognized for what you're doing and so forth. And water is an emotional card. So yeah, and the key, this is kind of a key lesson that came up for me in the last week, certainly. And maybe it seems obvious, but it's not always as obvious, especially if you're somebody who's very self-driven, if you're the kind of person who's had to tirelessly kind of fight for where they are. The water card to me has a lot to do with the way in which we get into our emotions and the way that our emotions are important here. Or going with the flow. Because remember, we had the letting go card in the other reading. Going with the flow, allowing things to just happen instead of trying to make them happen, instead of trying to say, no, I'm going to force a situation. No, I have all these obstacles, but no, I want this outcome and I want it now. Like letting go of that and behaving more from the heart rather than the head. Okay, going more from the intuition rather than from the head. Now, Nepenthes would indicate that the issue that we have with this is it's Neptunian energy. It's nebulous. She has to do with what is hidden, what is not really seen right now. And that really is the point of interest here, because we are afraid of what we don't know, what's around the corner, or there's an outcome that we're reaching for and we're not seeing the end of the road yet. We're not seeing the goal. And that's really the part that becomes a problem, because we're like, well, am I on the right track? Am I moving towards the goal? Am I doing the right things? There may be external circumstances that make us think, I don't know, maybe it's not going the way I want it to go. But what kind of coming in my head right now is, yeah, but sometimes it looks like things are not going the way you want, but they are. But they actually are. And so, in other words, okay, the way I think the Moonology deck put it was, just because you can't see your dreams manifesting in front of you right now doesn't mean that they're not. Okay. And the Ankh, goes along with what I say. I mean, this is about love. It's about loving life. It's about loving yourself. Really engaging in things that are from the heart, that are more about what you care about, the people you care about, the situations you care about, and acting from a space of, I'm going to say it, just a space of love rather than a space of defensiveness, of anger, of alienation, of wounding, acting from the wound. Okay? I feel like, that's why we have healing here. You don't want to act from the wound. You want to start acting, you just want to take the risks and say, you know what? Maybe it's worth it to do the compassionate thing, to give rather than take. And I don't mean people should give of themselves, that people shouldn't have healthy boundaries and things like that, or that if somebody is clearly toxic or abusive, that you should put up with that. I'm not saying that at all. But a lot of times, even in situations where that's not what's happening, we kind of get like that. We can still react with distrust about people and situations and about what's going on. So this is more about relax. Life might not be out to get you, right? And the ultimate outcome is Crook and Flail. Crook and Flail is, have status, be seen, have confidence. Again, this is a card of visibility. This is a card of being, having the confidence to do something and understanding that you can be grounded and comfortable in your own personal authority. Okay? It's literally a card that says you're not on the wrong track. If you feel like there's somebody who you're at odds with, or you did or said the wrong thing, it's like, no, you didn't. You're fine. It's all good. So Crook and Flail, and it's definitely about, and of course it is a card sometimes of self-discipline as well. So whatever track we're on, it's kind of like, do what you're doing and be comfortable and accept the fact that you have something to offer. Don't act like, oh no, I'm not, what I have to say is not very interesting. I'm not. This is saying, no, you do have something to offer here. And certainly when you're operating from this kind of a space, then that is when you are the most passionate. That is when people are going to notice what you're doing. That's when what you're doing is going to be the most authentic. And again, it's not an easy thing to do. And it's not like you can just think your way into it. It's just a matter of, as certain situations come up and you have choices to make, see what that inner gut says. You don't want to react from necessarily, because you will always have that little voice from the past that says, oh yeah, but if you do this, remember what happened then? Remember how that turned out? Well, you might not want to, this could happen again. You don't want to risk this now. And I think it's saying, though, if you feel the impetus to act that way, like, ignore that voice. Ignore that voice, because that is just the critic that we all have, and you can't get rid of your inner critic. It's there. Bottom line is, you are not a bad person because you haven't manifested everything you want in your life, and the wealth that you have might not have anything to do with how much money you have. Okay, so overall, the whole thing is just wanting to the whole theme that I had for this particular live stream was just don't let the ideas, like I said, these ideas about law of attraction and manifestation stuff make you believe that somehow you are in control of everything that's going on. You are a part of a bigger system. And sometimes it's good to step back and let the power of that system help you, rather than you trying to use your mind to control everything or thinking that you're in control of everything. It's a habit that we have. It's ingrained that this is the way that you have to be, that if you have a problem, well, you need to be taking steps right now to solve it. Sometimes the step you need to take is to step back and let the universe do it, and not just charge in and say, well, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to solve this right now. Sometimes you can't, and you just have to wait for the right time. And sometimes that's a frustrating answer, but that's sometimes I think it's just saying, the messages I've been getting a lot lately is just sit back, surrender, let the universe do it for you. So, wow, I've run to almost 50 minutes now, but because I had a little bit of a later audience here, I was just like, okay. It does make me wonder if maybe 7 to 7:30 might be a slightly better time frame for this. So I'll think about that. Maybe I'll have to do that in the future, if that's a time that's better for people to come on and watch this. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining me. Like I said, the whole recording will be there, and I'm going to upload it to YouTube. So it will be there for people to catch the bits that they didn't catch earlier, if you would like to do that. So I want to thank all of you for joining me. This is really great. I'm so glad that, you were able to join me this morning. And like I said, I'm going to be here every morning. And like I said, right now, staying 6:30, but I may shift it to 7 if that's better. And so I hope you all have a great day and a great week. And you're welcome. And I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.